Alright, so I'm going to cover the Tyranid formations for 7th edition, talk about some of the changes where I think big changes have happened. The first one being formations are now in the core rulebook, so people can still say, hey, I don't want you to play formations, because the core rulebook is really flexible as to what you can play. But formations are now core rules, and it looks like multiple armies, at least 3 armies now are going to have formations in their basic rules or in their supplements. So, I think they'll probably all get them in the near future. So, what do the Tyranid formations do? Some of these gave some pretty good boosts. I think they were written in part with 7th edition in mind. And so if you go through the first one, the Rising Leviathan number 1, the first one being the Lictor Brood, the Forest Lictor Brood, I personally still think this is a pretty solid formation. I mean, it's 5 Lictors. It's really difficult to destroy 5 Lictors. The downside to it is they can no longer assault on round 1 if you went second. They simply cannot assault in round 1, period. So they're a little less useful there, but the fact that they get a 3-up save in ruins or forests is pretty cool, and the fact that they can be within 6 inches of an opponent is pretty cool. So I think these guys are just almost as effective as they were before. Certainly in Maelstrom of War missions, the fact that they can be really close to an opponent on the first round may be okay, but the fact that you don't know what your special objectives are going to be at the beginning of the game when you're deploying means they're a little bit less useful there. The Manufactorum Gene Stealers, I was so hoping Gene Stealers would get boosted by 7th edition and somehow get much better. The only thing I think they really got was the ability to stand back up by becoming fearless with synapse from a Broodlord, so they could go to ground and then get back up. But Manufactorum Gene Stealers, they are okay, I think, because of the infiltrating rules at the beginning. So the fact that they can deploy within buildings or ruins, can be within 6 inches of an enemy. I think the benefit here is that they can grab objectives in a Maelstrom of War mission pretty easily, and the fact that they have hit and run lets them get out of combat. But I'm not sold on those being a great choice, unfortunately. Now, the Death Leaper's Assassin Brood, this is when you take Death Leaper and 5 Lictor Broods. And when I read the formation when it first came out, I wondered, why are you giving Death Leaper's Warlord trait? In his description, he can't use it, he's in a formation. Well, now he can. So they were clearly thinking of 7th edition when they wrote it. So this ends up with a formation that gives you 5 Lictors and Death Leaper. It gives them preferred enemy character and independent character, which isn't bad, and then they knock leadership down on anyone within 12 inches of them. I think this unit's pretty good. It's potentially more survivable than the Forest Lictors because each Lictor is its own squad, meaning you have to target them independently. It gives you some utility. I think in a Maelstrom of War mission, these are awesome because they can claim objectives fairly easily. They don't deviate when they deep strike, so you can plop them down later in the game on any objective you want and score it as long as it's not contested. The downside, which I've experienced myself, is that it's easy to kill a lone Lictor, and so they can give up first blood pretty easily. But I think the Assassin Brood really improved in terms of utility. Then there's the what's it called, Broodlord Hunting Pack, which is 3 Gene Stealer Broods and 1 Broodlord. These are the ones that either pop up in the city, so they can just be set up in ruins, or they can arrive in ruins from reserve. So as long as the building is or ruin is unoccupied. So that's kind of cool. I guess in a Maelstrom mission it would give you some better utility with grabbing objectives. it also lets you get preferred enemy against a specific model in a nominated unit. I think this one may be better than the Manufactorum Gene Stealers because of the ability to pop out of ruins later in the game. But if you're not playing on a board with a lot of ruins, they don't help you. And I think really they only benefit in the Maelstrom of War missions or Altar of War missions. Some of those missions are pretty cool. In which case, yeah, they're pretty cool in those too. And then the Gargoyle Bile Bombs, I don't see any special change in this one. I mean, at all. So I would say it's exactly like it was in the previous edition, where these guys can move the spore mines better and help out with their charges and such. But it didn't change anything for the game itself. And so I would say, when you're looking at formations, the Tyranid formations in that first Rising Leviathan, I would give most of those a thumbs up. They were pretty cool.